Now, joining us on the program this afternoon, we go to the United States and to Ukraine. In Kyiv, Ivan Us, advisor at the Ukraine National Center, and in Washington, D.C., Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us here. I'll start with you, Ivan Us. Zelensky recently said that the United States is showing a constructive approach in this revised 28-point peace plan. What's your interpretation of this new tone from Washington, if you think there is one? And also, what does it mean for Ukraine's negotiating strategy?
Greetings to you, Mark. Greetings to guests from the Washington, D.C., and of course, greetings to all Qnews audience. Thank you for invitation. You know, Mark, I think that now, of course, Ukraine choose such way of attitude to this plan that we are not against it, but we need to make some corrections, because the first reaction of Ukraine to this 28 items plan was extremely negative, because we read a lot so-called Russian words in these propositions. That's why in Ukraine we have a lot of rumors that initially this plan was written in Russia, and then through Witkov, special Trump envoy, give to Trump, and Trump presented as a U.S. initiative, but for Ukraine it was Russian demands, and in Ukraine even we have attitude to this plan as plan of capitulation of Ukraine, emphasize that fact. But then we decided that we need to preserve relationship with Trump and his administration. We are not ready to say that it's a bad plan. That's why we start to work on it. We immediately asked to engage European partners, because without EU and without the United Kingdom, it's hard to Ukraine to be in this dialogue or these talks. And now I think that we have a new version of this 28-item plan. Now it's a 19-item plan, but as you know, Donald Trump mentioned the 22-item plan. Nevertheless, I think that it means that this plan still on work, and still work will be. And for Ukraine, as I said, it's very important to say that we are not against peace, because in Ukraine, we think that initial Russian idea was simple: to preserve land that for Ukraine will be extremely negative, and Ukraine rejected, and after that accused Ukraine of rejection peace plan. But Ukraine is not rejected. Ukraine said, okay, let's work on it. And what's actually our partners in Europe's help to us to do? That's why now, of course, in this meeting, renewed delegation, because as you mentioned, that we changed the head of the delegation, because a lot of questions was to Andriy Yermak, the former head of President Office. Actually, a lot of people in Ukraine, before even this talks, said that it's not the best idea to make the person engaged in the scandal to be the head of a delegation. Let it be the other person. Yes, now we have the other person. And I think that the talks will be about changing the formulation of this plan. And then we will see what Russia reacts, because, as I said, Russia expected that there will be rejection of Ukraine. There is no rejection of Ukraine. So now Russia should respond whether they agree with plan or no. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, and Ginger Chapman, coming to you, as I mentioned to Ivan there, Zelensky described U.S. engagement as constructive. Is that how you view it as well? We had this 28-point plan, then it became a 19-point plan. Ivan Us there saying it could be a 22-point plan, Trump has mentioned. How do you see how things are when it comes to the plan as things stand?
Well, thank you, Mark, for having us today, and greetings to your viewers and your other guests. And what we have seen is facts on the ground are changing very, very rapidly now. One significant factor is the resignation of Yermak, Zelensky's right-hand man. Yermak was the gentleman who was making most of the decisions for the Zelensky regime, and his resignation is significant because this shows that the walls are crumbling around Zelensky. Many of his associates are now under suspicion of corruption, embezzling energy funds meant to rebuild Ukraine, meant for their energy grid. And what that shows is for America now, this is an opportunity that we can push Trump's peace plan forward. The Ukrainian delegation has arrived. It's notable that Trump did not invite them to Washington, D.C. They are meeting in Florida, and they're not even meeting at Mar-a-Lago. They're meeting in Miami. So Trump is showing that he is washing his hands of Ukraine. Trump wants to walk away from Ukraine, from the conflict, and begin the process of investment, rebuilding, business, and making money. And one of the things that we are seeing now is a sense of panic on the part of the Europeans. The Europeans know that Russia is able to accomplish all of their goals on the battlefield. They do not actually need this peace plan. However, Europe and Zelensky are desperate to keep the war going for their own power and accumulation of wealth. And the United States wants to move forward. And what Trump sees is that essentially, Zelensky and Ukraine are the ones that have been the obstacles to peace. They speak the language of peace, yet at the same time, they refuse any concessions. Zelensky keeps reiterating he will not give up territory. He will not give up his ambitions of joining NATO. He will not give up a large-sized army. So Zelensky is clinging to all of the points that are non-starters, deal breakers for Russia. And as we've seen, Russia themselves they are increasing the rate at which they're gaining ground. And it appears that once they take Donetsk and the Donbas Basin, their goal is essentially to take the land up to the Dnieper River. If they can get Odessa and Kharkiv, those are the remaining Russian inhabited areas.
Okay, well,
And
Ginger Chapman, let me just ask you. So, do you believe that the Ukrainians and Zelensky should just suck it up, and even though Russia invaded Ukraine and has taken its land, they should just suck it up and give over their territory?
Well, keep in mind, Russia invaded Ukraine after 10 years of the Ukrainian militias bombing the people of the Donbas. So in that sense, with respect to Donbas, one opinion is that the Ukrainian militias were the aggressors in the Donbas. However, one of the things that the Trump administration is experiencing is that there is division within the Trump administration. We have two factions now debating how best to deal with Ukraine. We have the Marco Rubio faction with General Keith Kellogg, who are more aligned with the Europeans. They want Ukraine to keep territory. They want to freeze the lines. They want NATO soldiers in Ukraine as a security guarantee. They want British and French troops on the ground with American backstop. This is something that the United States is reluctant to do, which is the opinion of the J.D. Vance camp. J.D. Vance is a pragmatist. He wants America out of Ukraine. Trump wants business deals to begin progressing. And what we may see now is America pressing Zelensky to flee Ukraine and perhaps to retire to someplace such as Greece or Italy or Israel.
All right,
all right,
I'll come back to that. I'll bring Ivan Us in now. So Ginger Chapman there saying that the real block on ending this war is Zelensky. What's your view, and what can you see coming out of this new delegation headed by Rustam Umerov when they meet?
So, Mark, first of all, for 10 years before full-scale war, Ukraine, according to official statistics that give the so-called proclaimed power in Donbas, killed 8 peaceful citizens. That's why when Russia said that Ukraine for 10 years bombed Donbas and immediately give statistics that 8 civilians was murdered. It's their statistics. It's not Ukrainian one. It's about the price and real meaning of the statement. So as for Zelensky, Zelensky is not an obstacle. Zelensky understands what people said. If Zelensky signed the capitulation, he immediately will be changed in Ukraine because people, first of all, determine what Ukraine should do. People don't like the idea of capitulation. People sharply criticize everyone in Zelensky surrounding, including President Zelensky, when he can try to make some steps towards not even capitulation, but at least searching some solution, because we see that aggressor is Russia. We see that Russia every night bomb our cities. 3 days ago, Russian drone hit the residential building situating next to my house. So I can say that Russia want to kill me, and they do. The residential building in Ternopil. So Russia have one target: destroy Ukraine and kill as many Ukrainians as they can. Of course, they talk about peace plans, but under the talks about peace plans, they want to kill as many Ukrainians as they can. That's why Ukrainian people said that President Zelensky, please do not give Ukraine to Russia. You should organize this battle. We are on the 4th year of full-scale war. Russia, as Donald Trump mentioned, should win this war for 2 months. But we are on the 4th year. That's why all Russian successes, if you look at the map that it was a year ago, for example, practically no changes. If you calculate last 1,000 days, Russia captured less than 1% of Ukrainian territory, because all territory under Russian control, first of all, it's 2014, and then they attacked in 2022. After that, there was no big successes. On the same situation as Donald Trump mentioned, Russia faced with very big economic problems. Russia increased taxes. Russia discussed not to pay pensions to their pensioners because they have enormous deficit of their budget. And if Ukraine so faced with the same problems, but we have partners that help to us, no one helped to Russia. And Russia, of course, surges money inside, so they talk about, let's call it so, nationalization of money of the people of Russia in the bank accounts. They talk about not paying pensions. They talk about decreasing salaries and so on and so forth. And of course, increasing taxes. Taxes seriously increased since the 1st of January, less than in a month from the day. So that's why the battle go on, and the Ukrainian delegation, it's not delegation of President Zelensky, it's delegation that represents opinion of Ukrainian people. And Ukrainian people said that we want to be in this fight because we understand that Russia wants to destroy them. Russia wants to kill them.
Okay.
And for not being killed, we in this battle. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, and Ginger Chapman, do you really think then that Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are being sent to these talks in Florida with the Ukrainians with some kind of message that Zelensky should go into exile and should capitulate and should go to Greece, as you mentioned? Or is that, in your view, something that you think is the outcome that should happen or is probably going to happen?
Well, first, the numbers we have in America is that between 2014 and 2022, the Ukrainians with airstrikes killed 14,000 ethnic Russians in the Donbass.
This was after Russia annexed Crimea, correct?
Correct. After Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, Crimea actually did vote to rejoin Russia, just as we saw the people in the Donbass. They voted to rejoin Russia. They have the right of self-determination. This is now in Russia's constitution. That cannot be changed. And what we see is one of the things that Russia has been fighting for, they've been consistent on. For Russia, it's never been about gaining territory. It's about protecting the ethnic Russians. We see in the new plan there's still no protection for the religious and linguistic abilities, the rights of the ethnic Russians in Ukraine to worship and speak their language. However, with respect to this meeting in Florida, this is against a backdrop. One of the things we found out is Trump's first few overtures to make peace with Putin. He offered business deals and he offered investment opportunities. And Putin said, no, we need to accomplish our goals on the battlefield. We're going to denazify, demilitarize Ukraine, have them neutral, no joining NATO, and protect the rights of the ethnic Russians. And Trump realized that these business investments were not going to induce Putin to peace. However, Trump is still pushing for these investments. Trump is looking forward. You'll notice his original 28-point peace plan. A great deal of that had to do with partnerships to invest money and create businesses for oil extraction, minerals, development of the Arctic. So Trump wants the war to be over, and he wants business deals to proceed with Russia for the economic benefit of both countries. Trump is a little bit desperate because his international global goals of creating peace, solving wars, winning the Nobel Peace Prize are slipping further away. Trump wants peace in Ukraine so that he can move forward. And one of the things we found out is that during this interim, since Alaska and the talks there, American businessmen have been speaking with Russian businessmen we have ExxonMobil speaking with Rosneft and Liquid Oil. So Americans are already speaking with Russian businessmen about investments behind the scenes, and this is what Trump wants to move forward. It is viewed as Zelensky being an obstacle. We did see Trump fire General Keith Kellogg, who was pushing for the European viewpoint in the peace plan. Kellogg is the one who leaked the 28-point plan. He is now gone, and we know that Trump is keeping this recent 19-point plan under wraps. He does not want details to leak so that it will not be sabotaged or undermined by the EU. We know that Zelensky is waiting to find out what happens today, and on Monday he's flying to France to meet with Macron. So we see that Zelensky and the European Union are still pushing for this war to move forward. Europe is trying to avoid accountability. Their energy industries are in decline. Their countries and economies are approaching bankruptcy. This war has also been a drain on American finances, and Trump desperately needs to start earning money to recoup our losses. And indeed, the recent events, once again, with NABU and the corruption board, the fleeing of the high-level executives, this is a sign that Zelensky's regime is crumbling. And this is the opportunity that Vance wing has to push forward.
Okay, well, you made that point there. Let's come back to Ivan Us. You can come back on what Ginger Chapman was just saying. But let's come to this Andrei Yermak situation. What a mess this is. Is the internal... Explain to us what is happening right now, and what is the internal pressure that is now on Zelensky after having to accept the resignation of his chief of staff in this corruption scandal?
So, of course, it was a large internal pressure because Ukraine is a democracy, unlike Russia. And, of course, in Ukraine, people determine a lot. And for last several months, even for last probably from the beginning of Andrei Yermak being the head of President Zelensky office before starting full-scale war, in Ukraine, society constantly accused him in monopolizing power and constantly said to President Zelensky, please fire Andrei Yermak, please fire Andrei Yermak. Because really in this model that Andrei Yermak started to build, there was a feeling that every appointment in Ukraine consults or happens after the agreed from Andrei Yermak, that he influenced on everything. And people said, we are not vote for him, we are vote for Zelensky. 73% vote for President Zelensky. And we are not voting for Yermak. That's why for as I said, for last many months, after even before corruption scandal arose, people said that please substitute him. And the last moment that influence on this change was a discussion in between our deputies about the budget of Ukraine. And according to my information, from 226 votes that Ukrainian parliament need to give for the budget, our government have 100 votes. And the question why you are not want to vote for the budget, the response was Yermak. We don't need Yermak to be in his place. He should be substituted. That's why substitution of Andrei Yermak is first of all response to this corruption scandal. Corruption exists in all countries in the world. You know, when Ukraine is being accused by the most corruptive country in the world, I always said, please look at the Transparency International. 180 countries in this list. Ukraine at the 105th position, not at the 180th. That's why we are in the middle of this list. Yes, in the worst part of this list. I'm not reject this. Nevertheless, even the first place in this rank, Denmark, the country without corruption, received not 100 of 100 points, but 90 points of 100. It means that even in Denmark, corruption exists. That's why question not in corruption itself. Question is whether you're ready to fight with corruption. And Ukraine demonstrates that we are ready to fight with it.
Yeah.
Even in time of brutal war.
I'll
Yes,
bring Ginger Chapman in because, of course, Ivan Us has a point there. In an op-ed last week, the Trump administration was called the most corrupt administration, the most corrupt president in the history of the United States. So it's not that the United States is without its own corruption issues. And the European view on the sacking of Yermak is that Ukraine is dealing with the issue, and the investigation that's in place to root out corruption is actually doing its job. What's your view?
Well, the American people do have our own opinions on the corruption of our own leaders. However, one important difference is the leaders in Ukraine that are accused of corruption are actually fleeing the country. So they are not there to negotiate on behalf of Ukraine's interests anymore. And indeed, we do see that Zelensky's new lead negotiator, Rustem Umerov, he himself is under charges of corruption. So when he returns to Ukraine, how effective will Rustem Umerov be in these ongoing negotiations? And this brings up Putin's point that if he does sign a deal with Zelensky or with the government of Ukraine, if Zelensky is an illegitimate president because they're under martial law, they have not had elections, how valid legally would an agreement be? And could the next administration that comes in say, well, that administration was illegitimate, we do not have to honor this agreement? So the corruption in Ukraine raises risks not just for Ukraine, but also for the negotiating partners who are relying on their signatures for any deal. And this brings us to America. The American people need stability. We see what is happening in Ukraine. They're increasingly unstable as they approach the brink of military collapse along their front lines. And the fleeing of their leaders, their energy leaders, to other countries, Israel, Poland, perhaps Romania, this is a sign that they are quickly becoming negotiation and agreement incapable.
Okay.
And the last point is America has realized we are too far away. We are not close to Ukraine. We cannot send soldiers. We cannot send military equipment without Russia blowing them up as soon as they enter the country.
Okay.
So America is realizing we're very limited with the military support we can offer. We are too far away.
Well, thank you very much, Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst, joining us from D.C. And also Ivan Us. And you mentioned, Ivan, that your building, the building next door to you, was struck recently. We wish you the best, and do stay safe, and join us again from the Ukraine National Center. That's Ivan Us there. Thank you very much indeed.